Okay, everybody, welcome to SOA News with Jay. Joining me, of course, is the host of SOA News, our new chief political news anchor, Jay. And because Jay is so adamant that we do it, here we go.
Let's do it.
Okay, Jay, so what do you have first on us for our agenda tonight as it relates to the news of the day?
Well, let's see. This is from Calif. Sorry. That's right. This is
Don't
from
you,
California Globe,
don't you know rule
and
number one when you record is always vibrate?
you know what, man? Nobody ever calls me, but it always happens at the right time.
That's
Okay, okay. So this was actually back in June 13th, but there's a reason why I pulled it up for now, just because I want to, make all this just go together, and I hate all this. Okay, anyway, so California's new amended infanticide bill. I'm pretty sure y'all heard about this. This is gonna be from Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks, Democrat of Oakland. Okay, so this assembly bill is 2223. It's an abortion bill misleading labeled reproductive health, which actually seeks sought to legalize infanticide, to expand the killing of infants past the moment of birth up to weeks after the Globe reported. Well, see, they keep on saying that this is not what they want. That it's really about women's rights, women's uh, you know, a right to reproductive. This is for their health. It's all this good stuff. But I just don't see it that way. I mean, if it's for their health and all these things, then why are they so angry? Oops, am I lagging out?
Yeah, you were lagging out a little bit, but keep going.
Okay, and so they're just pushing this. They're all for the murder of babies. So why wouldn't they be for the murder of other people? Oh man, I am lagging out today. All of a sudden,
Well, that's not that bad.
not that
So,
bad. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like if they're willing to kill babies, what makes you think they're not willing to kill regular people? So here, this is from September 26th. Well, that's something else. Okay, so an elderly pro-life shot after argument over abortion in Michigan. This lady was literally, I think she was 83 years old. She was going around trying to go to people's doors and talk to them like, how the Jehovah Witness do, but nobody likes that either. But that's kind of sad, man. I mean, she's just going out there trying to discuss this pro-life issues, trying to see if she can change people's minds, because that's the the grass work of anything, of any political party. Even though you don't, as individuals don't feel like you're contributing, this is a really good way to contribute if you don't have a media or a platform or a seat at the Senate or the House, but just going doing the grassroots work, just going and actually, having good conversations, because usually people don't really care, but this person didn't care so much, but actually hated it, that she gets shot, man, after they get it in a heated discussion, and they just go out there, and the guy that she wasn't even talking to just goes out there and just shoots her in the back of the right shoulder. She has to drive herself all the way to the hospital, and there's no arrest, there's nothing like that. There's it's just a random thing.
sounds almost like me when I walked myself to the hospital.
Man, I mean, isn't that just crazy? Okay, and the next other one is FBI SWAT raids home of a Catholic pro-life activist as screaming children watch. Those are his children. So this man, he's one of those people that stay outside of the abortion clinics for preaching and trying to get people, unsuspected women that are just in this whole delusion of abortion rights, and as it's something good for their life, just because they just think that kids are ruin their careers, or too expensive, whatever that means are, or whatever they want to justify it as. But this guy goes out there and just he's trying to do the best. He's doing the grassworks too. He's out there trying to stop it from actually happening. And God bless him, because it gets pretty crazy out there. I like to see some of those get all up in their face and crazy. And well, this one of these times, his 12-year-old son's there, and they are just this old man. I think he's like 73. But he's an older man, and he's out there just screaming at his kid's face, twice, once. I'm not sure, but the father gets mad, which is the Catholic priest, and he pushes him to the point where this elderly man sues him. And but the local government, I mean the local officials, just waved it off. They were like, you know what, it wasn't. I don't know why they just waved off, but I guess it wasn't too serious. Well, almost a year later, the SWAT from the FBI come in and take him from his actual house in front of his kids. They didn't show no warrant. They didn't want to do none of that. I mean, after they read the warrant, apparently his wife was saying, you know what, they felt kind of guilty. They felt kind of bad. But you see, nothing's happening to the other, what, I think it was 63 pro-life organizations that are attacked. Nothing happens to them. Actual, Catholic churches are being vandalized, especially from the organizations called, I think it's what is it called? It's something of revenge. I forget their name right now. Jane's Revenge. Nothing happens to them. They're known as a group. I mean, that's domestic terrorism. Isn't that what they're always complaining about? That the number one problem of America is domestic terrorism. But this is domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism is using violence to push your political agenda. But they go to this man's house, raid him, take him in front of his kids. I mean, how? I mean, talk about weaponization against a political party? That's just sad to see. I mean, that's where we're at. You either get shot in the back just for going to preaching to people's houses. You get raided by the SWAT for stopping people, or not even stopping people, but just trying to get mothers to not commit abortion. I think it was called the FACE Act, is what the act that they used to say that he was breaking a federal law. And the FACE Act, I think it was called, the right to be, or the how? Let me see what it was called. So the FACE Act. Can't write it, but just put the FACE Act. Man, my notes are not that great. Okay. Next, we got abortion as a matter of freedom for Biden and Democrats. See, they're pushing this notion that now they're fighting for freedom. That all this abortion is not really. They don't really center it on what they're actually doing. The consequences of having abortion is actually killing somebody. But to them, it's all about freedom. It's all about liberation. But even Biden goes to the United Nations, and that's like one of his number one issues is the women's right to have an abortion. And the whole United Nations is, all for the dismemberment of the nuclear family and higher patriarchy. This is like basically, not only are we seeing this in America, but this is everywhere. This is everywhere. This is done by the United Nations. So Democrats don't really care for our sovereignty. They really care about just being aligned with what the rest of the world wants. They're just going in for this whole agenda around the whole world, and everybody that's left wanting to go against it is labeled a white supremacist. They label all this patriarchy stuff to the colonizers and all this good stuff. I mean, like,
well, I mean everything. I mean, I'm a white supremacist, Jay. Did you not know?
I mean, you are a white supremacist, man.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. But Jay, the thing the thing is they have to do this. And I was watching video today. I think it was Black Conservative News or something like that on YouTube. And it was on Judge Joe Brown talking about whether Donald Trump is a racist or not. And Judge Joe Brown was recounting when Donald Trump was the primary financier of Jesse Jackson's run for president back in the 70s and 80s. Uh, then we also have when Donald Trump was dating a black woman, bringing her down the red carpet and all those things. We had instances where uh, when banks refused to loan money to black people who were trying to start businesses, people would tell them, "Go see Donald Trump. He'll loan you it in an installment loan." And Trump would loan it to them, and when they would come to pay him back, he would take the check, tear it up, and hand it back to them and say, "Enjoy your business." He wouldn't even
I
take
like
their
that.
money. He would just give them money, so long as you could prove to him that you were, going to make something out of it. And when they came back with that check that said they were going to pay him off, he's like, "You know what? I don't even want it. The payment is that you created a business." And during that commentary of the host of that show, what he brought up is something that's really common, is that the Democrats and the left have they have colonized the word racist, where only Democrats can use the word racist. Democrats can use it, but Republicans can't use the word racist. It doesn't mean anything if we use the word racist, because we are the racists according to them. Even though when you go down the history of the Democrats, they are the party that is the party of racism. I mean, you see what they think of us, uh minorities. I mean, when I say us, I mean black people, Hispanic people like yourself. You know, they come to you and they say that you're as unique as a breakfast taco
Ah,
and a bagada down the street.
oh man, that's
And
Biden's wife right there, man.
they come to me, my folks, black people. They say to us, they say, abortion is good for black people because that poor black woman doesn't have to raise a nappy headed Negro. So it helps create jobs because the black women are working instead of raising their families. When when you take a look at right now, the the Planned Parenthood, as I've said many times, Planned Parenthood was organized by the Democrats, particularly by Margaret Sanger, to cleanse America of the black population. At the time that this was going on, this is the study of eugenics. At the time that this was going on, black people were projected to make a third of America's population. Today, after 42 years of Planned Parenthood, where black people make up the majority of abortions, and over 75% of all procedures performed by Planned Parenthood are abortions, and black people make up the vast majority of that, considering the fact that abortion centers are placed in poor minority communities and made ease of access for them. Well, since that time, I've done the math. 420,000 black children are murdered every year as a result of Planned Parenthood. Since the conception of Planned Parenthood back in the 1970s, there have been more than, even remember, the number of deaths since then, of all deaths, is over 42 million. Black people make up around a third of that number, despite being less than 12% of the population. The problem is that the Democrats have hijacked the word racist, and it doesn't matter if you point out the fact that Joe Biden is a racist, or that Barack Obama is a racist, or that Louis Farrakhan is a racist, or that Hillary Clinton is a racist, or that all of the programs that they put in front of you. It doesn't matter if you point out the racism, because doesn't matter to the people who watched and view those programs. It doesn't matter to Democrat voters. Democrat voters only see one thing, and that is feelings, and they don't see the facts because remember, Democrats they don't watch television that actually gives them facts. They watch things that gives them things about their feelings. So when you try to explain the issue of abortions and what it's actually done to our society and to our young people, particularly in our African American and Hispanic communities. Not so much Hispanic, mostly African American. Uh, they don't want to hear it because it makes them feel bad about themselves. So you have to make them feel good about themselves. That's all Democrats care about is that if whether or not they can feel superior to somebody else. So when you say it's about choice for women, when it's actually not about choice at all, because you're denying the choice of life to that individual that has not yet been able to breathe their first breath. You get to see more and more about what they actually think when you look at it. Uh, you take a look right now at California. You mentioned some things about California. Well, here's another thing about California. Do you know what the new racist thing in California is?
Um, mm, I'm not sure.
Diesel powered trucks.
Oh, shut up.
If you drive a diesel powered truck, you are a racist, despite the
Oh
fact
my gosh.
that all the male members of my family that I can recall, except for my uncle Al and my uncle Levy, who were military. My uncle Levy was a Tuskegee Airman, and my uncle Al's been in the Marines for over 30 years. Uh, every male member of my family was a truck driver. That's how and they make a lot of money doing truck driving. I lo I whenever I would work and I would check in those trucks when I was working at the job, do you know the vast majority of truck drivers that came in there were Hispanic and black? It's very rarely that I see a white truck driver come in there to deliver produce or pick up our supply. It was usually somebody Hispanic or somebody black. So to
Oh yeah.
say that diesel powered engines are racist to black people is ridiculous. And on what reason is it racist? Well, they say it's racist because it causes pollution in black areas.
You know what? I've actually heard something like that. They were actually saying, you know what? America's producing all this pollution, and the reason it's racist is because our smog or our pollution is gonna carry over and go into Africa. You know, you know, that's what I think I heard. That was like 2 years
Well,
ago. But that's what they incorporated with climate change and all this good stuff.
since we're on that topic, why don't we talk about climate change? Right now, there is a Category 4 hurricane in Florida right now, Hurricane Ian, which is projected to be a worse disaster than Hurricane Katrina. We'll know for a fact whether or not it uh, beat Hurricane Katrina's um, record for the amount of damages. Uh, Once the storm passes, we've still got about 24 hours before the worst parts of the storm are gone. Um, but already the Democrats are saying that this storm, they're politicizing it and saying that it's a result of climate change. And if we don't start giving our money to the government, we're all going to die because of this storm. Because apparently, Category 4 hurricanes just don't happen. Well, here's the facts. The facts are these Category 4 hurricanes happen every single year. We just don't get them as often. Fortunately, we've been blessed to where these hurricanes they come close, and by the time they reach America, they go over the Virgin Islands, they go over Puerto Rico, they go over a lot of the islands in the Caribbeans, and it's sad to say this about those individuals in those areas, but those islands in the Atlantic and in the Gulf of Mexico, those islands in the Atlantic, those act as barriers to the storms, and when the storms cross that land, it significantly weakens and dissipates the storm. So by the time it reaches us, it's no more than a tropical depression, or it becomes just a light thunderstorm that lingers for a couple of weeks. Well, talk about more of the facts. More of the facts are that these storms have not increased in strength or scale. They have not increased in frequency. They're done exactly what they're supposed to do. They hit the same targets every single year because, lo and behold, these are not random pathways that these storms follow. These storms follow the Earth's magnetic field, which you can see in the Ring of Fire, that Ring of Fire, is ain't of volcanoes that go all that kind of links everything around. Well, the Earth's magnetic current also channels around the same thing. And as you go above the equator, the magnetic pull of the Earth pulls towards the North Pole. When you go south of the equator, it pulls towards the South Pole. And when these storms reach a certain area and they reach that warm water, they're being pulled by the currents to go where they need to go. It happens in the same places every year. The reason why human beings are more affected by it isn't because the storms have gotten more dangerous or more deadly. It's because humans have decided to overpopulate in areas that are on the shoreline. And so when you live in areas that are on the shoreline, well, what are you going to get when a storm comes in? Massive flooding, storm surge, and wind damages, all right? That's what you're going to get. And that's what happens. But you also have to take a look at the fact that over the last several years, we've been tracking hurricanes and climate systems. Literally nothing has changed at all. For thousands of years, nothing has changed. Things have been going the same way that they've been going forever, and they are politicizing this storm, and there's no evidence that this storm has anything to do with climate change. It's just doing what it's supposed to do at the same time of year every single year. So I don't know if you got anything that you want to say on that, Jay, but that's about what I want to say on it. I'm tired of people trying to say that these hurricanes and these tornadoes have things to do with climate change. They have nothing to do with climate change. Over over 70% of all tornadoes in the world happen right here in the Great Plains of the United States. Is it is it because of climate change? No, it's because the United States has all of the perfect ingredients to form a hurricane in the Great Plains. Warm air meets cold air. The pressures come together, they swirl and they mix and bang, tornado. You go everywhere
I mean,
else.
well,
Go ahead.
well, here's the church guy again. Hi guys. So what about for people like me? I mean, we do see it kind of. I mean, it just seems like it's chaotic, but this has been happening nonstop. People don't move from these places. I mean, they're never gonna move. How many times has hurricanes hit you every single year at the same season? Every single year when the fall
Uh,
is
I've
coming
been
in.
I've been in my grandmother's house for every hurricane that I can remember. I was there at my grandmother's house during Hurricane George. This was back in the early 1990 in the late 1990s or early 2000s. I can't remember when. I was there during Hurricane George. I was there during Hurricane Isaac. I was there in Hurricane Katrina. I was there Hurricane Rita and Hurricane I can't remember the last one, Hurricane Sheila. We never leave. Well, first
How
first of all,
how can you do that? How you're not scared? How is that? How y'all have the courage to stay and y'all know how crazy it can get? You said
well
you were
first
part. You set up for the Katrina. I
yeah,
mean, how?
we were there for Katrina. I watched my aunt's house get picked up by a tornado and get dropped on the air conditioning. And we sat outside and watched everything. We watched the trees fall down, everything. Watched the power lines snap. You know, uh, but here's the thing about hurricanes, about storms that come from the ocean in general. The vast majority of the damages and the vast majority of evacuations need to happen along the coastline where you are below sea level and can be affected by that storm surge. The further inland you go, the the least amount of danger you're going to be in. Where we lived at, we had a nice foundation brick house. We lived on a hill, so we didn't have to worry about floods. The only thing that we had to worry about was damage from falling debris because we lived in the middle of the woods. So if a tree snapped and it landed on the house, that would be potential damage. Or if the wind was so strong that it started to blow stuff off the house, that would be potential damage. But you don't have to evacuate the entire state when a hurricane happens. You just need to evacuate the area that's on the coastline. And even then, once you get to a certain elevation, you're good. I was here during the last hurricane, and maybe I should have left, but I didn't have anywhere to go. But during the last hurricane, and it was a small hurricane. I think it was like category 2 or 3 by the time it hit the land. And there was an old building on the road that I lived at, and the building was made of brick, and it got completely blown away. I remember walking to work the next day to try to go check and see if the job had power so I could charge my devices. And that building was completely gone. Just all that was left was some bricks. The rest of it was gone. I remember seeing other houses been blown away, but you see a lot. And then as a religious person, some people are going to say, "Well, God is pissed off. This is why this is happening." No, this has nothing to do with God. The weather patterns have been the exact same for before we were here. Before America was even America, the exact same hurricanes hit the same area every single year.
Well, let me be that religious guy real quick. And you know how I forget which passage it is. It says, but towards the end of time, things will get worse. The hurricanes will get stronger. Everything will get stronger. What do you say to that? Like,
Or I say, well, sure, things will get stronger, but the fact is that the Lord will not be sending a rain cloud to do His business when the things are done. Those are not going to get any. Those are not going to get any stronger. They haven't gotten any stronger than they have been. It's just rare that a Category 4 touches land. Most of the time, it hits those barrier islands. It hits those islands in the Caribbeans, and those islands dissipate the storm. And a lot of times, it crosses over into South America before it comes back into the Gulf, and they get the most brunt of it, and it just comes up into where it's supposed to go. None of these things have gotten any stronger than
but
they
I
than they
mean,
have been.
isn't it part of the growing birth pains?
No,
Hmm.
not
I
at
have to go
all.
into that because that was one of the reasons that I would say, you know what, this climate change is probably supposed to happen. I mean, God already said it was. It's not the
Climate
doing of
change
human.
climate
It's
change
not.
is
Well,
supposed to happen.
It's not that. I mean, climate change has always happened. For all these. I mean, it's always changed. No matter what. People don't get that.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
that's why.
climate change is supposed to happen, not not because of anything that we do, and not because of anything that God is doing. It's because of what He's done. He created an earth that regulates its own self. And so every some odd years, the Earth's climate has to adjust in order for it to regulate. When the Earth's insides start to heat up a lot more, that's where you start to see all these methane emissions into the atmosphere from all these active volcanoes that are constantly erupting because the Earth's internal temperature has gotten hotter. So, in order for the Earth to cool down its internal temperature, it erupts. It sends all these gases into the sky, so that the sky can then cause the precipitation that it needs to cool down the Earth and to raise sea levels so that another ice age can happen. That's what the Earth is trying to precipitate. Not a global warming, but the Earth is trying to precipitate another ice age so that it can cool itself down. And then once the Earth has reached a level where it's cooled to the point where its internal temperature is regulated again, it will start to heat back up and everything will start to thaw out again. This happens every several 100,000 years. This happens. We're long actually, most scientists believe that we're overdue for a another ice age by 500,000 years.
Yeah, but that isn't that what Al Gore initiated his global. I mean, his whole thing. We're gonna hit an ice age.
Al Gore doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Al
Mhm.
Gore was the same person that said that the polar bears were drowning because they had this because the ice caps were melting and they were in danger. When polar bears are in fact have grown by over 10 times the estimations that the scientists gave in 2006. There are more than 30,000 polar bears from the projected number of 300, which wasn't even a real number to begin with. They just made projections based off of a 3D model as opposed to actually getting down on the ground and actually doing tangible science. They just made up numbers. That's the whole problem with climate change scientists and these global alarmists. They do not actually use real science when they make these measurements. They use 3D models and graphs that have estimations that are based on zero science, just based off of what they believe. And when you actually apply the science to it, you find out that they were dead wrong, completely dead wrong.
I'm gonna like all this because this all goes to what is an actual fascist, but we'll go to there eventually. So the sad part about this is, our kids are still going to be getting indoctrinated. So not only are we facing these as political talk, and they're just so highly political, but we're gonna have to deal with the new generation coming up that's indoctrinated in all these things. In Texas, we're the board of they're changing the curriculum for social studies, and
Well, they've been doing that for a while.
I mean, well, they of course they're always going to redo it, But the
Well,
thing
they've been
is,
doing that for a while. It started with Barack Obama, really. I mean, you could say that it
really,
started. You could say that it started earlier than that. You can say that it started way back in the nine in the 1980s, but really it started with Barack Obama. Obama's Common Core that he introduced to the education system is single-handedly, if you ask me, his worst policy agenda, which caused the indoctrination of our children and caused the retardation that our children have right now. They are so stupid because of Obama's Common Core that he introduced. And most people think that Common Core is just math. No, it's not math. It's the entire educational curriculum that they instituted. And all it's done is dumbs down our children, and our children are too stupid to be able to do anything.
give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Hold on.
While Jay is going away, I'm going to continue going on the news here. I want to share a picture with you guys. I know that we talked about this before when I was doing a show of rep, but because we're talking about climate here, I want to share this with you guys, and I want you guys to be on the screen for this. So let me go ahead and share this with you guys. Here, let me do it like this, and we're going to do a share here, and we're going to go on this um, window.
My bad, my bad, my bad. What are you sharing? What are you sharing over here? What are you sharing?
Do you see this here?
Yeah, I see that guy. I don't like that. I mean, it's
All
not
right,
that I don't
so
like him. He's weird.
I want you to watch this here. I got the audio sharing too. So I want you to watch this because I think this is important because this is what I've been saying about climate change and about climate science. So take roll the footage.
Oh, I've seen this one, bro. He got demolished by this guy. I've seen this one.
Wait, no, this
It's
isn't
not
the
playing.
one
I
that I'm
can't. I
looking
can't.
for.
I can't really hear it. I can't hear it though.
Oh, it's not. Let me make sure I got the volume playing on it. Uh,
Yeah, but I absolutely like this one. I like this one a lot. Forget why, but I remember it was good. What was that guy's Michael? What is that dude's name again?
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, let me make sure. You know what? I might have to do this number here and swap my my sound over to my sound box, and you'll be able to hear it through my sound box. Uh, Give me a second
Okay,
here.
let me go ahead.
I'm gonna swap it over
So
to my
let me go
sound
back to
box
that.
real quick. Turn it up, and give me a moment here to put my other headphones in so that I can hear you. Because when I swap it to my sound box, I can't hear through
Yeah,
these headphones in. But
I can hear myself.
yeah, you can hear yourself because you hear everything that in my sound box. So give me a moment here. I'm gonna
Cool,
go
cool, cool.
down. You can speak. I'm turning it down, and
Got it.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna find the one that I was looking for. It was one with Brian Stelter.
Okay,
Let
well,
me
I'm
see.
gonna read that Texas one. So, board member
Here,
Rebecca Bell Machiro. I was gonna read that.
here it is. I got it.
I read it ahead of time. It's just, ooh, dude, I hate this connection problem.
All
Maybe
right.
it's this internet.
So that's
Go
that's
for it.
happened to me. I got this video here. Let's listen to this real quick.
It's nice to be on CNN. Hello to all your viewers. I resent you calling me a denier. That is a word meant to put me down. I'm a skeptic about climate change. And I want to get clear, Mr. He's not a scientist. I am. He's the CEO of the Weather Channel now. I was the founder of the Weather Channel, not the co-founder.
And I'm glad you did, because I am addicted to the Weather Channel. I watch a lot
I'm
of cable
talking now.
news.
Hold on just a
Well,
minute. I'm not done. And CNN has taken a very strong position on global warming that it is a consensus. Well, there is no consensus in science. Science isn't a vote. Science is facts. And if you get down to the hard, cold facts, uh, there's no question about it. Climate change is not happening. There's no significant man made global warming now. There hasn't been any in the past, and there's no reason to expect any in the future. There's a whole lot of baloney. And yes, it has become a big political point of the Democratic Party and part of their platform. And I regret it's become political instead of scientific. But the science is on my side.
I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion about the topic right here. What I do
Oh,
wonder,
I know
though, is
we're
when
not
you
because you
see
wouldn't
the,
allow it to happen on CNN. But I'm happy
well,
that I got on the
we've
air
been
and got a
talking here for
chance to
several
talk
minutes.
to your viewers. Hello, everybody.
What
There
I
is
do,
no global warming.
what I do,
Yes, yes. I love it, man. Because I mean, dude, that's just what they because it's been politicized, but that's part of what the fascists do. They make everything political, everything. I mean, they use science. Oh, the science back, the science of gender affirmation or gender, just what? Ugh. Anyways, and so here's member Rebecca Bell Machiro, I think that of District 5 in San Marcos, spoke about her opposition to the motion, saying the new curriculum means there will be nothing about the fact that we've had a black president, the fact that we've had a pandemic, the fact that we are facing global issues with climate change and immigration, all kinds of topics that people don't want to address that seem controversial. It's not that they're controversial. It's just they're a bunch of politicized. I mean, it's a bunch of
I don't
propaganda.
I don't understand why they're trying to say that the curriculum's going to remove the idea of a black president. That's not actually part of the curriculum. Everybody knows who Barack Obama is. Everybody knows he's going to be the president. And the issue with trying to put the pandemic in the current curriculum is because the the evidence surrounding the pandemic has not yet completely been revealed. So it will be foolish to add information about something that is not even more than a year or two old to a curriculum because there's not enough information to go about it. The reason why we have the flu of 1980 with influenza. The reason why we have that Spanish flu in our textbooks is because it killed more than 500,000 people in the first few months of 1918 when the virus was first released here within the United States and people first contracted it. And we took several years to develop vaccines and antibodies to combat the Spanish flu of 1918. And we have that in our textbooks because we were able to study it for a number of years. And that information did not come into a textbook, to my knowledge, for the first time until the 1970s. Now, mind you, that the Spanish flu didn't took place in the 1918. So a number of relatively almost 60 years was the amount of time that it took for them to put that information in a textbook. Whereas when it came to the president at the time, that was in the textbook before the Great Depression. They had the next president in the textbook. Not that the president of 1920 actually did much. I mean, Warren G. Harding didn't do anything, which is probably why Warren G. Harding's economy moved at the speed in which it did, because he didn't do anything to help it or hinder it. And so his economy boomed, despite the fact that, in my opinion, before Barack Obama, Warren G. Harding was the worst president in our nation's history. But now that honor belongs to Joe Biden.
Yeah, Joe Biden. So Dr. Elias is the is the board member, chairman of the board. He says we already have all that stuff. Number one, we have U.S. history, 2008 election of first black president Barack Obama. Number two, middle school science. Students understand that climate can be impacted by natural events and human activities. You see, it's already in there, but that's not what we want kids to know, because I mean, come on, I mean, they blame it on us, but the Industrial Revolution and before the Industrial Revolution doesn't really show any changes in these
There's
things.
there are change, but it's not significant change. And when I say it's not significant change, what I'm talking about is that there are changes that happen in localized areas of the human activity, such as, for example, California and New York having poorer air quality because of all the smog in the air. Well, that's change, but to a global scale, that is nothing.
Well, I mean, see, that's more about pollution. Like whenever they're saying, "Oh, well, there's pollution," well, hell yeah, there's pollution. But I mean, is it truly changing our weather? No, I mean,
No,
because I mean,
it
even
doesn't
though
change.
even though I don't believe
It
in
changes
climate change, I believe that there's pollution problems. That's for damn sure.
it changes uh weather problems. For example, in New York and California, they have what's called acid rain, and that's when the smog mixes with the moisture in the clouds, and when it rains down, as opposed to raining down as water, it's raining down as corrosive liquid. And so
But see,
it's not dangerous to human beings, but it will turn your brand new car into a speckled.
I didn't hear that last part. I didn't hear that
Said
last
it
part. But
I said it will turn your brand new car into a speckled trout, which means that it's gonna leave a bunch of spots on your car from the corrosive liquid rotting away at the paint and rusting the paint.
and that's where I don't want the federal government to have so much regulations on these businesses and stuff like that. Because I mean, there's been some crazy stuff. Like I forget what place it was, but they were poisoning the water with like carbon, and it was just ridiculous. It made everybody deformed and stuff like that. Have some regulations, but those companies need to do it for themselves. But the free market should also say, you know what, we're gonna just choke them out. If they're messing up our
Well, that's
environment,
what the
we
free
can
market
choke them out. It
do.
doesn't have to be
Barack
regulated.
Barack Obama got in the way of that. You see, Barack Obama, when he bailed out the banks and he bailed out General Motors and he bailed out Ford, what that did was it destroyed our ability to be able to use the free market to tell these companies, well, you offer poor quality service. I don't want you anymore. Fix your quality or get out. So when Barack Obama comes in and he fucks up the insurance with the Affordable Care and he messes over housing prices with the housing bust and boom, and he messes over uh car prices by bailing these guys out. Now those guys are no longer beholden to the consumer, which would be us, who will use the free market to tell you how to
Choke him
do it,
out.
to choke them out. Well, now they don't have to care what we they don't have to care about quality or pass the sniff test with us, the consumer, because Uncle Sam is going to be there to pull them out of the hole. It doesn't matter what we do. I got another video that I want to share with you. Uh, let me see here if I can share it.
Okay, let me
Mm.
read the next three while you're doing that. High school science, chemical reactions such as those that many result in degradation of water, soil, air quality, and global climate change. Number five, high school science, investigate and analyze evidence for climate changes over Earth's history using Paleoclimate data. And number six, immigration is discussed 21 times in our standards. So they're already being indoctrinated. But, they're still, I mean, like they can say what we're saying, I mean, not to say that we're, arbitrators are true. Anyways, but, they're still pointing to climate change. It's already in there. I mean, they already have their foothold, but they're gonna go all the way, man, all the way, and make it everything politicized. And I was gonna go to the next one, indoctrination. This is from Association of Mature American Citizens. Indoctrination in American schools cause teachers to quit. Confidence in American schools, kindergarten, grammar schools, high school, colleges, and universities is in the tank. A new Rasmussen poll shows that just 8% of respondents gave public schools an excellent ranking, and only 22 said they were good enough. 10 days earlier, a separate Rasmussen survey found that only 23% of American adults believe U.S. public schools provide a world-class education. And it goes into say that a lot of these a lot of the reasons why these educators are leaving is because of the indoctrination. This is Dr. Ingram wrote that many parents are particularly concerned about the far left political indoctrination that dominates today's K-12 public education classrooms. The daily promotion of the LGBT agenda, critical race theory, divisiveness, and wokeism is being pushed nonstop. And you see earlier when we were coming out telling, teachers can't be, preaching their LGBT and all their leftist agendas, these political groups that we discussions with, they were saying, you know what, that's why we have a low teacher turnout. That's why we have a shortage. But that's not really the case. The case is that there's just so much indoctrination, and not only that this bill, that if it gets passed and they get more further into their agenda, not only do teachers have to agree with it, but they have to say that they have to champion it. They have to agree with it. They have to promote it.
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's the biggest issue. What we're dealing with here is that we have these people that do not know how to teaching our kids. We have these people that do not know how uh, to uh, to provide excellent curriculum, that are providing curriculum. You have young people who don't know how to read and write at appropriate grade levels, and that's the reason why we're facing so many issues. And that's the reason why I've said that Barack Obama is one of the most dangerous things we've ever had for our country because of what he did to the education system. Now you like Prager University, and I like Walter
I love it.
Williams. So let's take a listen to this here.
Many people believe that free market capitalism is selfish, even immoral. They say it's about greed, about hunger for money and power, that it helps the rich and hurts the poor. They're wrong. The free market is not only superior, it is morally superior to any other economic. Why? Market calls for actions between individuals. In a free market, from you for you.
That we're across when we talk about capitalism, we talk about free markets. This is what that I gave you did that kind of ruined us when it comes to our ability to leverage these corporations and companies. This is the reason why it's so difficult to uh, go on a strike from a company now. What they did, and this really goes over it. It's a wonderful video, and it'll finish up our episode actually because this is 5 minutes. We got about 5 minutes left of our show.
Let's say I mow your lawn and you pay me $20. What does that $20 really mean? When I go to the grocer and say, I would like to have 4 pounds of steak, he in effect says to me, I want a lot of people to serve you. Ranchers, truckers, butchers, and packagers. All these people to serve you. Well, I say, I mow a fellow man's lawn, and the prove it. And I think of the money that you've earned as a certificate of performance. It's proof that you've served your fellow man. People accuse the free market of not being moral because they say it's a zero-sum game, like poker, where win, it means that I have to lose. But the free market is not.
That don't usually have.
Is it me or am I lagging? You lagging?
A positive sum game. Something good for me, such as that steak, and something good for you, give you $20. I'm better off because I value the steak more than I value the $20, and the grocer is better off because he valued the $20 more than he valued the steak. We both win. Ironically, it's the government, not the free market, that creates zero-sum games in our economy. If you use the government to get a food stamp, a farm subsidy, or a business bailout, you will benefit, but at the expense of your fellow citizens. Isn't it more moral to require that people serve their fellow man in order to have a claim on what he produces, rather than...
Now, this is an important part here as well. Let me finish this point before I start going.
And not serve others and still have a claim.
So this is why you take a look at what's going on in government. I say that people need to be accountable for what they do. You say this all the time, that you need to be accountable for your actions. Well, this is all about accountability. If I have something that you want, you need to be willing to give me something that I want. You know, I have a show that you want to be on, so you have to give me content for me to put on the show. But it has to be content that I like. Like it, I don't air it.
I'll kill. I'm just kidding.
This is the way business is run. This is the way things are done. This is, we used to call that barter. You get something like, if you scratch my back, I scratch your back. That's what it was. That's how
I benefit from this too.
That's how capitalism came to be. So let's continue here.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, let's go and finish this. I wanted to like the last points. A little bit the last points.
All right. But a lot of people ask, what about giant corporations? Don't they have too much power over our lives?
Here's the part about
not in the free market.
Bailouts.
Because in our market, we the people decide the fate of companies who want our business. Free market capitalism will punish a corporation that does not satisfy customers or fails to use resources efficiently. Businesses, big and small, that wish to prosper are held accountable by the people who vote with their dollars. And again, it's the government that can undo this. Take the example of the American automobile industry. It was struggling to survive in 2009. Why? Because they were producing cars that did not please a sufficient number of their fellow men. In a free market, they would therefore have gone bankrupt. The market would have said, look, you're done. Sell your plant and equipment to somebody who can do a better job. But when Chrysler and General Motors failed, they went to Washington, D.C. and got the government to bail them out. The government bailout essentially meant to them, you don't have to be accountable to customers and stockholders. No matter how inferior your product is, and no matter how inefficient you are, we'll keep you in business by taking your fellow man's money. When the interferes in this way, the power away from the people and rewards companies that couldn't compete successfully in the marketplace. That may work out very well for politicians, big unions, and corporate officers, but it seldom does for the taxpayer.
There it is. There it is, right there.
That's true, man. That's true, man. That's true. You can see them doing this from the original New Deal after the what is it? New Deal.
Well, yeah, after the New Deal by
Depression.
by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, we had a lot of the same issues happen after the New Deal with President FDR. And one of those chief issues that we had was all of those programs, which were supposed to be temporary programs, were made permanent, and you would just take money from the average everyday American and give it to somebody else. You would give it to somebody who did not work the same hours, who did not yield the same what do you call it? The same quality of product. So it didn't matter whether or not you produced inefficient product. It didn't matter whether or not your product was deemed to be unsuccessful, and that businesses decided that people decided that they don't want any of your stuff. And so that's the government comes in and they say, we can just do whatever, you can do whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't have to satisfy your customers. All you have to do is satisfy the government, and government will give you the money, whether your customer wants to give it to you or not. We'll take it from them and give it to you anyway. This is the reason why so many people say taxation is theft, because as you can see, they're taking our money and giving it to the big unions and the big businesses and the CEOs and the government. So that's why we always wind up with that issue. Let's continue because we got like 1 minute.
Why is it I hear Dash 54?
Yeah, because you can hear it because it was coming through my headset, and for some reason,
turn that down.
For some reason, because I was on DC, and for some reason it was still playing their stuff through my headset, and it's not supposed to.
I mean, I like the guy just because he has me up, but come on.
I hate the guy. He's
well, put my mic the right way because I can hear myself.
Well,
and so here's this part.
Set to the other thing. Let me see. You shouldn't be able to hear yourself.
Am I lagging because
you shouldn't be able to hear yourself. I don't have my sound box connected. You shouldn't be able to hear yourself. Can you hear yourself now?
Oh yeah. Nope. Okay. Nope. Yeah, I can.
Let me turn this. Well, no, you shouldn't be able to because that's turned down.
See, people, we're having technical difficulties. We're going to continue.
Anyways, continue going forward.
Okay, so healthcare. Biden walks back pandemic is over remark. I was gonna see because I was trying to look into it, but why are they now? Because there's a new
education system
education
is
system
suing
is
Biden
suing
for
Biden
his
for
cancel
his
student
cancel
debt.
student debt.
They're saying he
They're
doesn't
saying he
have
doesn't have he can't just do that out of nowhere. That he doesn't have the right to do that. But what is it with his pandemic that is over? Wasn't it? I think it was linked to Biden saying the reason he could give that the cancel student debt was because of the crisis was because
yeah,
now he's saying that it's over.
There's a presidential province that says that in times of emergency, you can dip into other funding of the government and use that to fund something else. And Donald Trump did it to fund portions of the wall. However, where with Donald Trump, what made it legal was there was a clear emergency that Congress refused to act on because Congress, according to the Constitution, Congress is supposed to take care of anything that has to do with immigration and illegal immigration, and they're supposed to, and they refused to do so. And it was an emergency because we were getting millions of people crossing the border that we weren't able to vet. Well, Biden tries to say that he can do this, canceling student debt uh, at a tune of $1 trillion, um, because we're in an emergency with COVID. Well, he was just asked in a press briefing, what was it, last week, and he says, "Well, COVID gone, it's over."
Yep.
Well, if you agree that there's no emergency, well, how are you going to claim emergency powers to rid people of student debt, which is not an emergency because it's already been deferred multiple times.
Mm-hmm. See, man, I'm telling you, and so I was gonna link that to the good old racist stuff. So they're also saying that because he did this, they should also tackle the medical debt, because of the fact that there is a racial wealth gap and a racial health gap. So
No, there,
now they're linking it to racism, that we should do this because low income people are usually minorities, blacks, and
well,
so
no,
not
that's
only
not.
student debt, not only the student debt, but now we have to tackle on the health, the
Well,
medical.
that's not it either. They you see, this is the problem that I have with them because the reason why black people and poor people, specifically poor people, have this issue of medical debt is because poor people do not have insurance. And so they have a lot more outstanding bills to pay because they don't have insurance. Not only that, but when a poor person goes to the hospital, they're not going on a doctor's appointment. They usually go to the emergency room, which is an increased bill for the expeditious factors. You have to be expedited services in the emergency room so the emergency room can be cleared out for actual emergency. So you have to be expedited. So you bill for that. They say that that things in the hospital will cost free, that it shouldn't cost me $1,000 for a trip in the ambulance. You know, the ambulance isn't. I've been in the back of an ambulance a couple of times. Nothing special. It shouldn't cost you $1,000 to be in the back of an ambulance. They stick you with a needle and
Yeah,
talk to you while you're on the way to the hospital.
I know, dude. I know. I traveled from here to Odessa, which I could have drove myself, people, and it cost me $5,500, and I still have it.
Yeah, but
But
that's the cost when you go to an emergency room. Here's the other thing. This is the other reason why poor people, specifically black, since they want to make it a race thing, wind up having to pay so much more money uh, than white people or rich people. Since it's not really white people, it's just wealthy people who have insurance. Well, not even wealthy people, just people who have insurance. Is when they get the bill from the doctor gives them a form and says that, well, if you don't have insurance, you can fill out this form and we can do a sliding adjusted fee where you pay such and such and such and such until the bill is done. So long as you pay something, you're okay. Well, here's the mindset of the poor person. You can go to the doctor as much as you want and never pay him. You don't have to pay him at all. Just say I'm all I can afford to give you is $1, and they have to accept it. And And so all those bills start piling, and then when they go to the doctor and they get a bill and it's $10,000, like, well, I can't afford that. Well, you didn't pay any other bills. Then now the doctor's losing money because he has a case file on you that shows that he's done all these services on you and he hasn't gotten paid for any of them. So eventually, service has to stop, unless it's an emergency for that individual because the doctor and the hospital is not making any money.
That's the sad part. That sucks. That sucks because they do gotta make the money. But hey, man, emergency is an emergency, regardless if you have money or not. Save my life because that's the only thing they're supposed to do is save your life at least.
Yeah, and so they're required to give you service, whether or not you have insurance. But if you don't have insurance, you have to wait. People who have insurance are for higher priority because the doctor can get paid. You
Yes,
know,
sir. Now
if
let me go through this one. Let me go through this one because we've hit these points, but I just want to make sure we what we've talked about today, we can put it and categorize it as in what is truly fascism. So here's from our new far right Italian prime minister. I think her name is Giorgia Meloni, like granddaughter of what's her name, Miss Mussolini, and they're just like going crazy. She's the new right wing Hitler. She's a Trump, but she's a woman, and forget her women's rights and empowering women because this doesn't fit my agenda.
All because she said in her speech that it's all about family and the reason and family and religion because they want to the left wants to separate you from your family identity and your religious identity because they want you to embrace their identity of XYZ and all of the other isms. And I loved
Oh
it. I
yeah.
thought it was a great speech. I thought it was great. I don't know how well she's going to do. Women don't typically tend to be very good leaders, but I hope that she's a good leader. She seems to be more competent than the other women that have led their countries downhill, such as Germany with Meghan Markle, how they led it, and
Oh jeez.
the UK with their former prime minister before Boris Johnson. That woman who led the UK and did a poor job at doing it.
And please, people, look, man, if you're conservative like me or like Odin, do look at what they're actually saying. They just don't take the headlines for it because they actually had a conservative woman on the issues going crazy, like, oh man, there's a new Mussolini. And I told her, like, what is fascist? What is fascism? And she was like, oh, she didn't answer. She was just, she's going crazy. She was like, I'm a conservative. Why are you telling me this?
Well, most people
And I was,
don't know the definitions of these words. They don't do any research. And this is what I have to say. I've said this many times to everybody out there, whether you're conservative, independent, Democrat, socialist, crazy, whatever you are, patriotic thing that you can do at election time is stay home if you don't know what the hell you're voting for. If you don't know
I
anything
love
about the
that. That's
candidates,
true.
and if you don't know anything about policy and what's going to make America a great country, the most patriotic thing that you can do is stay home. Voting is not
Yeah,
for
I think
everybody.
I think even one of the best presidents history was a person that just didn't do anything. Not, just kept everything as it is. Stop trying to push just crazy agendas. And that's actually probably one of the best things you could do because, that's why we are conservative. We want to keep things the way it is, constitutional and our republic. So this is what she's against. The energy crisis, that's being done to them, just basically that what we're facing here in America, choking of the oil and choking of these good things. She that the central banks are controlling the world. She wants to maintain fiscal spending, which is government spending, something that our government needs. She doesn't want the technocratic government, something that we again went through with the pandemic and what we are seeing with Joe's mandates of vaccine, which is actually turning out to be. I mean, I wouldn't say anything about it because you'll get banned. But I was seeing some things that there was that during the pandemic, the death rates for 30 to 40-year-olds, 20 to 30, was about what, say 20-30% up during the COVID pandemic. But whenever the max mandates were issued, there was up to 200% increase in this young adults getting hurt. Getting sick. And I'm saying it now too, because even Tucker Carlson goes in and says, how is it that little kids are getting this? There was a doctor, his name by Marty Makari, March. He was saying, what, there's a heart condition that's going on. We've been saying this for a long time, but they were like, you're just crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist. But it's called myocarditis. And you see, this is the problem with technocratic governments. They think they know more than you. They think they're the experts, and you just have to shut up and listen. But she's also, she's also pro-Ukrainian. She is against abortion, which is already going to put her in the terrorist watch list. She's against euthanasia, which is death by doctors or whatever. She's against LGBT, gender identity, which is another leftist why she's being called a racist, white supremacist. Stopping radical Islam, because of course Europe has been flooded with these refugees, and that's why she doesn't want no massive immigration or international financing, giving money out to other countries, because come on, you gotta take care of yourself. But what she is for is God, fatherland, and family. And that you see, just right there, she's a natural old conservative. But they already painted her as a white supremacist, maybe even a Christian nationalist. I'm pretty sure eventually they'll call her that, because that's what they call all of us, is white nationalists. You'll be seeing that a lot more in the news once it gets closer to the persecution of Christians. But here's some bulletins on what is fascism. Widespread media propaganda, basically like our movies, like Disney getting all this propaganda of LGBT, climate change. I mean, who's really doing the propaganda? Yet they say Fox News is the propaganda, because they pull up the issues that's really affecting us in our sovereignty, in our borders, and our people. Union of the Spirit. Okay. Another one is the everybody belongs to the state. Nobody can be against the state. No, that means basically like what Biden said. If you're against anything, any of his policies, or against anything of the 2020 election, then you are a domestic terrorist. You can't say anything. You can't be like one of the parents going against the school board saying, I don't want LGBT. You'll be labeled a domestic terrorist. If you go against anything that they say, climate change, you're just a Neanderthal. You need to get thrown out like everybody else. So it makes everything political. This includes art, television, sports, just like our sports, our art, history, critical race theory, that's part of critical race theory, sex, everything supports the state. Mussolini said, science is only useful to push fascist ideas. Is this not true? You see, we're talking about the science that they're pushing, these leftists, and the only reason they care about it is because believe the science. Believe in the science. That's all they say, but they don't really believe in science.
I mean, come on now. They don't believe
exactly. That's what I'm saying. This is what makes a fascist. Is whenever science only pushes forward their agenda. We also have Mussolini said no socialism. He didn't like socialism, and no true democracy. The only reason he doesn't like socialism is because he wants all the money to be allocated to him, like an authoritarian government, and basically all the people to be a collective mind, not to be individual. Because conservatives like to push individuality and your own person and what you can do for yourself, not as a collective. We're not doing all that stuff. That's all fascist stuff. Mussolini, FDR once put it, ownership of government by a controlled people. Basically, once our government is controlled by Democrats and we're no longer, the people, but just the slaves of the people. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in rights, just like leftists, Democrats. They don't believe in our God-given rights, our unalienable rights, right to pursue happiness, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Wait, I'll sound like Joe Biden again. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They believe that government.
The thing.
you know the thing, but he says. I mean, they say that government issues the rights. That government is your God. That government's gonna take care of you. Government's gonna feed you, clothe you, give you housing, everything. But as soon as they get the power, they're taking all that away. Because if they give you the rights, if they give you those rights, they can easily take it away. That's the problem. That's why we have our God-given rights, and that's why we love that's in the Constitution. Please read it. There is no objective truth, only their lived truth, and then turned into law, and then it continues to control, and it's all over the media. So again, the objective truth is men can have babies, and now it's being pushed into law to where you can't even preach the word of God because they'll say it's hate speech, or I think it was even a basketball player. He said the word queer in one of his live streams, and it's getting fined I think it was $400,000. I mean, he has the money. I'm pretty sure that's why they made it. So maybe it was 40,000. I'm not sure. I don't have it up. But I mean, you as a teacher, if you don't gender affirm it, you're gonna be fired. There was actually a kid that didn't want to call one of his classmates the other opposite sex, and now he's labeled as a sex offender. And this kid was like 12 years old. It's disgusting.
Well, Jay,
And
we're over.
well, actually, I'm coming to my last point. This is the last thing I was gonna read actually, because there's no good news, and we are over the point. Well, all I can say is this: Matthew 5:10, blessed.
Well, you just lagged out, so we gotta wait for you to come back in. Well, Jay is experiencing some technical difficulties. Here I am. It's now starting to sound like Joe Biden. But that's not because I've been taking a sip of the old cider. It's just because I've had a long day and I'm quite exhausted. And then I've got this little wonder right here. Leave my cuff link alone. I'm biting my butt. Always trying to put your mouth on something. You have this little bundle of joy right here. Is always acting like she's a baby. As Jay has lost connection. It's okay. They can lose connection. I can't lose connection. That's perfect. Well, Jay's lost connection. And with that being done here, I want him to come back in the show. I could end it myself right now, but I want Jay to come back and end the show. So I'm going to give him a couple of moments to end the show. If not, then I will end it. So we're going to wait just a few moments here.
Well,
See, you
how sad, man. I knew I was the one that was lagging, man. It's crazy. I don't
see
lag all.
you come in here. Hey, you can do all that complaining after the show's done.
Right? Okay. This was I didn't really have any good news to end off with, but I did have this. This is Matthew 5:10,
Oh,
because we're
please.
talking about
You
all this.
didn't look for good news. You just wanted to do some preaching. Just go ahead and admit it.
I mean, that is true. Oh, you know what? I think I did find some funny news. I wanted to finish the other off because we were finishing it off. The good news is good news, but this is better news, and that is this: even though we are going through this and standing up for our rights and our beliefs in God, and they're just trying to take God away from us and everything like that. All I can say is this: Matthew 5:10. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Prayer for strength in the face of persecution. Father, as they persecute and belittle us, give us strength to rise above it and become mighty soldiers in the army of Christ. Help us to not offense by it, because that's all we can do. And I think that's the best news. Just because we have to be rooted in something. What other good news could I have given? I
Well,
think the only
Jay,
other one I have.
just because the gospel means the good news of Jesus Christ doesn't mean that that's going to be the good news every single week.
Well, you know what, man? I mean, I
If you
kind of.
want to preach, there's a such thing as a Sunday show that you are supposed to be hosting that you don't show up for.
But man, you see, at the end of it, I have visualized it. I was gonna be like, at the end of the news, I was gonna end it with scripture and like a little preaching message.
People don't watch the news to be preached to. They watch the Sunday show to be preached to.
At least I stand up for God and the news. That's what I can do. But I'm still gonna give, because that was gonna be the ending of all this stuff, and I was gonna give some good news. But I can't find that funny news. I think I had it. I had one because there was
You
one
never
funny
had
news.
one. You never had one. We all know the truth. But
oh man.
our time together must come to an end. We're 30 minutes over time, which is okay. I don't care. So, Jay, this is your block. You have to do the
I haven't got the
outro.
ending out right, but you know what? Let's just say this. This was Story of America with Jay motherfucking Jay. I probably won't be saying Jay motherfucking Jay, but since it's not the preaching corner, I can say it, right? I'm Jay motherfucking Jay.
Well, you're
So
trying to
come
be a
over here and
professional
watch
newscaster.
our news. We got some conservative news from a world a biblical perspective. Hope you enjoy it, and I will be back with Odin on the third one, so you can help me out with the kinks and the intros and the outros and the little doodles and the sprinkles. We're gonna do all that good stuff.
And I got this wonderful graphic that I get to play every time. Now, with that being said, thank you guys for coming in and taking a look at our content. If you enjoy this type of content, then go ahead and like, subscribe, click the bell down below. Also, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Truth Social, Instagram, everywhere you can find us on social media. Like and share and download our content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the Pony Express, your sister's ass, everywhere that you can find us. The Story of America, Face of Williams, Story of America, PW. And we will see you guys